Welcome everybody to the R&R Catcast, a fan-based podcast focusing on Montana State athletics. We're two dudes named Ryan from the state of Washington talking about our dear Montana State. We hope you enjoy.
Welcome back, Bobcat fans, to the R&R Catcast. This is Ryan, aka Thorny, and I'm going to be your host briefly here for this introduction. Ryan Foley is in Montana on vacation, so he was not able to make this segment. However, we did record a segment last night with Shane, aka Driscoll Cat, and that's going to be what we're going to play here in a little bit. So what that is we basically just recapped fall camp, talked a little bit more about the quarterback battle, and talked a little bit some position battles. As of tonight, Sunday night, MSU has released the depth chart for the Texas Tech game, so that will answer some of the questions that we recorded last night, so that was fun for us. So what we're going to do now is just release this kind of as soon as we can here, and we'll record the Texas Tech preview episode probably Monday night and release that to you Wednesday. So stay tuned for that episode. So this episode that was recorded last night, Ryan, like I said, is out in Montana, was using his just little cell phone to record, so you'll notice a little bit of an audio difference between him and what he normally does. He was quite literally, as he tells me, recording from his parents' basement. So have you even really podcasted if you don't record an episode from your parents' basement? I don't know. That's the question for people smarter than me to answer. But without much further ado, we're going to get into it here. Let me play the recording from last night with Shane Driscoll, me, and Ryan Foley as we discuss fall camp recap. Hope you enjoy. All right, well, now we're going to have our fall camp recap, impressions, whatever you want to call it here. We got Shane Driscoll, Driscoll Cat, on here to talk about a little bit what he's seen at camp, because he's the only one of us three who's been able to be at camp. Shane, how you doing tonight?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Glad to have you on. All right, so why don't you, first and foremost, tell us a little bit about what you've been doing. You kind of started a little YouTube channel, Bobcat Outsider. What's that been like?
Yeah, so initially, we talked about me attending the camp to kind of report back and kind of share my thoughts with you guys. And that was the initial impetus, as you know. And I just decided, I have some good audio equipment. Why don't I try to record some of that audio? So it just kind of like from there, in order to do that, I emailed Bill Lamberty. He got back to me right away. And all of a sudden, he's, I'm kind of in a position to, record good audio and video of the different interviews and some of the different parts of practice and stuff like that. And it's been kind of a whirlwind, but it's been really fun and cool to just be a little bit kind of on the inside of what's going on in fall camp.
Yeah, you went from 0 to 60 real fast.
Yeah. You kind of like I was there one day and I was just like, why don't I just like pull up my phone and just record what they're talking about? Because they just started an interview like right in front of me. So I'm like, I'm just gonna record it. And I sent it to you guys. And I think it was you, Thorny, that were like, you need to get some equipment. And I like took it as a personal challenge. So I'm like, no, I have equipment. So I showed up with everything, full guns, ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of how Foley was when we decided to do the Big Sky kickoff. Like all of a sudden we're like, yeah, you think we can get into this thing? And then next thing you know, like we're going to this thing, and all of a sudden Foley's there, picking up his little pass, and away we go.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I had a question for you, Shane. I was wondering, like, when you first were getting into it, were you nervous or did you feel confident?
Yeah, I did. I'm not the kind to feel like overly nervous in situations like that, but I did feel nervous because it was just like a lot of people who definitely did belong, and then me who's like, I'm sure I don't, but
sure.
Hi guys, can I ask some questions, please?
Yeah, exactly. I didn't even want to ask questions because I was just like, I don't want to sound stupid, but so for anyone who doesn't know, I'm a complete amateur when it comes to journalism, that kind of stuff. but I'm very interested, big fan, and I have the equipment to do a relatively good job of recording, and equipment and a little bit of knowledge to do that. So
yeah, you mentioned you have some good equipment. Why do you have the equipment?
Yeah, so I appreciate that little segue for me to plug my.
There it was.
A nice little softball for me. My wife and I have a YouTube channel where we share our adventures around Montana, different road trips, hiking, backpacking trips in different places around Montana, Yellowstone, Glacier, up into Banff and stuff like that. It's called Adventures of Shane and Laura. If anyone wants to check it out, anyone that's interested in just kind of seeing different parts of Montana that they might not be able to see otherwise, or just different ideas of where to get out to and have some fun.
No, I've watched a few of the videos. You do a great production value as you do with your Bobcat Outsider stuff. Like you got a talent here, my friend.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
We could put that link in the show notes as well. So if our viewers want to check that out, it would just be a hyperlink in our notes. That'd be pretty cool.
Yep, do that and throw a little mention on social media. How's that sound?
Yeah, thanks, guys. I really appreciate that.
Welp, gentlemen, why are we here today? We're going to talk some fall camp, some football. It is game week as far as I'm concerned because we're going to be releasing this on, Wednesday. We're recording it on a Saturday night. We're going to be like multiple recordings in this bad boy, but this is the fall camp discussion with Shane. I'm excited. It's football time. Are you guys excited?
Go Cats, man. I'm ready to go.
It's like analogous of going back to school. You just keep waiting and waiting and waiting. Just like it's taking forever. And then it's just going to come. It's going to be awesome. So I can't wait.
It's almost like, whoa, slow down a little bit. We haven't even we still got a lot of episode stuff here to record.
I know, right?
It's like, we're not ready for this season. I thought I was, but no, not.
Here we go.
All right. So I think what we'll talk about tonight, a little bit of an outline, give some more impressions of the quarterback situation. I felt like last episode, we spent some good time talking about Tucker Rovig and what happened there and how we didn't maybe get necessarily a fair shake. And we also talked a little bit about just how we got here, how we got to having Casey Bauman and Tucker Rovig be the quarterbacks fighting for the spot. But I feel like we should talk a little bit about actually what Casey Bauman brings to the table, his abilities, maybe any things he needs to work on, and what the offense might look under him. Also, talk a little bit about the competition that we've had brewing in camp at multiple positions and just the competition between maybe even position groups. There's been some discussion on that from the coaches, so we can certainly talk about that. And then after that, I don't know. That's pretty much what it's going to be. Any other random thoughts or questions we have for our quote beat reporter Shane, who's actually, like I said, seen some practice. We are out here in Washington. We just read it and we watch Shane's videos. That's what we do. So how's that sound, guys? That sound like a good little outline there?
There you go.
Sounds good to me.
All right. So starting off with Casey Bauman. Shane, what have you seen from him in camp? You've seen him a few times in practices. You made it over to one of the scrimmages, right?
Yeah, I did. So the first scrimmage was closed. But I have seen some 11-on-11 drills, and then saw the second scrimmage, which was kind of by necessity, pretty vanilla. They wanted it to be 100%, on the record, which, generally you're not supposed to just be like, tweeting out any random thing at practice. But at the scrimmage, they were like, whatever, do whatever you want to do. So, but, necessarily it was pretty bland, but it's enough to see Casey in action. I guess one thing I want to say really quick is like when someone talks about, oh, this is what I saw at the practice, or like this is what it looked like to me. Like most of the sessions with the ones on the ones is like a lot of the practices are out on, I think it's called Deitch Field. And it's like a football field away from you with a whole, the 3s and 4s are right in front of you. And then there's a line of football players on the sidelines between you and the other football field. So it's extremely difficult to have a very clear view of what's going on. I'm sure that's by design, but that just is to help kind of give context when someone's like, oh yeah, I saw there were exactly 3 interceptions and this one looked like that. It's like, well, Yeah, you didn't see exactly what the interception looked like. It's just too hard. You're just too far away, and it's not. You're standing on the side with these other guys. You're kind of talking to each other about was that Bauman that threw that, or what that looked like. So that's just to help people to understand that it's very limited. Even someone who has a very keen eye for what they're looking at, it's still very limited in what their take is going to be, especially early on.
So you're saying that a certain Grizz poster who has a quote connections, many insider friends who saw multiple interceptions, maybe they, if these are even actual people, may not have actually seen what they thought they saw.
I'm saying anyone who's claiming a specific number of interceptions that they were all thrown in such a way that's people might be inflating their authority a little bit.
I don't know who I'm talking about here. I'm just throwing random thoughts into the world.
Yeah, right, for sure.
So, carry on.
Yeah, so thank you for getting real specific about something I was trying to stay vague on. I really appreciate that. No, just kidding. No,
you're welcome.
Yeah, I know, but it was it was really a new experience for me. I had not attended practices before. I'd driven by them and stuff on Kagi, but that was the first time I stopped and just stayed and really kind of tried to observe and get an idea of what's going on. And what I think I'm seeing. Let me just be frank. Bauman just seemed to have a better fall camp all around. Like he was being more consistent. He had some nice little moments where he had to escape the pocket, but he kept the play going, kept his eyes downfield and delivered a strike when he needed to. He definitely still delivers in that +1 run game. He's just a big guy. I think if you guys looked at the video I put up of the scrimmage, I just got the video of him running in a touchdown on the end of a nice drive that he put together during that scrimmage. And he's just a big physical guy who can move a little. He can move pretty nicely. So I think he brings all of that to the table. I think that he has a degree of humility, which is kind of refreshing to see in a quarterback. I'm sure you can kind of see it in his interviews and stuff. But yeah, I think he was just significantly more consistent than the other quarterbacks in the competition.
Well, he could strike me as someone who has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, coming from such a small school, putting up big numbers and not getting very little, Division I looks. So you can certainly see the humility just coming from that standpoint. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
Shane, I was wondering what his demeanor is like. Does he command leadership and the times you've seen him, are players gravitating towards him? What do you see there?
I wish that I could answer that honestly, Foley, but I can't say that I've been able to have enough observation of him with teammates in such a way that I could say definitively, yeah, he's got a lot of command. Although in my talking with other teammates, they've both expressed a lot of confidence in both of the two quarterbacks who were in the competition, him and Rovig. Mm-hmm. I don't see any reason to think that they don't. I don't see any reason to think Bauman doesn't have a good command of the huddle. But even Jeff Cho said in his interview where he announced that Bauman was the starting quarterback, specifically, he said, now that's not to say he said that that Bauman had command of the huddle, but he said specifically that's not to say that Rovig doesn't have that same thing. In fact, if it's anything, it's my gut feeling, is what he said. I will say on the sideline with the reporters and other people, there was a bit of a consensus that Bauman was having a better fall than Rovig in general. So when Choate says it's just his gut feeling, maybe that's because he has more confidence from the spring where there were reports that Rovig had a better fall camp. But I do think that Bauman just looked more consistent. But I genuinely believe Choate when he says there is no, that they both had a lot of confidence from their teammates.
Sure. And, we heard that maybe that's why he had won the job, is because he had more of that command of the offense. But, if all things are equal, if that's an equal thing, then something else has to stand out. I think We mentioned it on the last podcast that we did, that is just his willingness to throw the ball down the field to take a few shots. It didn't sound like Tucker Rovig really was able to do that. It sounds like maybe he Choate was getting on him a little bit to like, just throw the ball down, Tucker. Just throw the ball down the field. It's like, It just didn't seem like he was willing to air it out in the system where like that's what Matt Miller predicates, that Boise State kind of offense on.
I do think that Bauman, while he might have been a little bit less hesitant, he was still more hesitant than the real young guns, Blake Thielen and those guys who've got nothing to lose. They throw a pick and it's like, all right, next shot, But I think, they just both had a lot on the line. But I think that there was like a level of consistency that we were seeing out of Bauman that was a little bit higher. And gosh, the quarterbacks on the team, you just see some really nice touch passes and you're like, oh my goodness, like that looks so good. You see it from everybody. And then you see moments where it's like, oh shoot, like that is not what I'm hoping for. And I guess this is one other thing I wanted to touch on. This is not a happy, warm, fuzzy thing at all. And this is coming from a fan. We want to say like, well, they're going against one of the toughest secondaries, one of the toughest defenses that they're going to see in the conference. And that is certainly true, but some of the interceptions that were thrown were clearly not a function of that. They were throwing directly. I mean, maybe there was something to do with the pressure. But my impression of them was, boy, you just threw it straight to the defense on some of them. That's not a lot of them. I don't want to make it sound like, oh, they're terrible, but I just don't want to give them a pass on every single interception that they had, or every single bad pass that they had. Sometimes it's just a bad pass, And so I just wanted to clear that up because there's a lot of different narratives that can come out when you're just like, well, this is what kind of my impression or whatever. But then when you show up and you see it, it's like, okay, yeah, but that doesn't get chalked up to that. Like that one right there, that did not look very good. Even if it's not an interception, it's like, that's a place where you need to have that in a game or something like that. So that was the place where you saw more consistency out of Bauman. He wasn't doing that as often, but he was certainly not faultless in that respect.
That's, something that is going to be expected with the young quarterback. Both those guys are young. Like we're talking Casey Bauman is a redshirt freshman and Rovig is a redshirt sophomore. And I mean, they're just still really young and they're still learning yet another new offensive coordinator system. I mean, that's just, you're going to make a bad decision or bad read and they're still young and they're still processing the game. But I mean, every quarterback, Brett Favre threw plenty of those kind of passes in his career because he's right. A gunslinger. Did you see that video clip on Twitter of Brett Favre when he first got in the league? He had no idea what a nickel defense was.
Oh man, I did not see that.
he asked the quarterback that was there before him, like, he's like, all right, they're coming out with a nickel, and Brett Favre's like, what's that? It's pretty funny. Gosh. It's just funny. Like there's a lot of different ways to approach quarterback, is what I'm saying. There's the book smart guys, and there's the guys just go out there and just trust what they see and just throw the ball and then don't even know what kind of defense they're looking at. I don't know where Bauman fits in there, but what kind of quarterback do you think he's going to end up being, I guess, is a question. I don't know where he's going to be. He's going to be a guy who's just giving a game manager, take a shot down the field every once in a while. Like I don't think the staff will ever ask too much out of any one quarterback we ever have.
Yeah, I think until we see someone like step up, like a Lule or McGee, you're gonna see, especially when you have athletes on the team like we have that are just these insane weapons that you can throw in a Wildcat and just be like, no one has any idea where that ball is gonna go and on the ground, like where it's gonna go, and they're gonna walk into the end zone sometimes. When you've got those weapons, like you don't have to put that pressure on them. So why not, just kind of ease him into it.
Foley, what are your thoughts on Bauman as his abilities go in his play style? Just kind of, what are your impressions of him?
Well, I don't have a lot to base any solid takes on. Shane's audio and videos are what I've seen, really. And so I'm going to withhold. I think Montana State will do just what Shane was talking about, not give them too many opportunities basically to screwed up and employ, the Travis Johnsons, the Troy Andersons, the Kevin Gassises on the team to take snaps. And it's going to be like this platoon style quarterback system. And my thought is, when I was thinking about this earlier today, is I bet they start out conservative with Bauman and see how he progresses. And my hopes is, by, like UC Davis time, that 10th game or 11th game in the season, hopefully he's making some strides and that he becomes more of a playmaker for us. So, and he might be a playmaker right away. I don't know. But I'm guessing that he's going to be limited in what they ask him to do.
If you're Miller coming into Texas Tech, Foley, kind of what's your game plan on how to utilize Bauman, how to work him into his first game in a pretty harsh, big-time environment?
Well, I give him a lot of easy throws. I bet he's going to be throwing a lot of bubble screens right away. Check down passes. I think they'll probably want to stretch the field like they did with Troy Anderson. They would always take 1 to 2 shots early on, or 1 or 2 shots per quarter. And so I think they're probably going to do that to keep the safeties from crowding the line and, dropping in. And so beyond that, I don't see him doing, a lot of intermediate passes, over the middle. Maybe, I'm not sure, but that's just my gut saying that. And I think that they will roll in. I'm sure within the first quarter, we're going to see at least 3 different people take snaps. So I think we're going to see a lot of rotation in the quarterback system at Texas Tech. But, if Bauman progresses as a passer, that could become less and less throughout the season.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about Texas Tech here after this segment. We'll do a little preview of them. My first play of the game, though, Bauman drops back, fires a bomb 50 yards downfield, Travis Johnson. I don't care if it's complete. We're telling Texas Tech that we got a quarterback with a rocket arm, and we got a wide receiver who's going to blow past any DB in the country. I don't care if it's complete or not. That's a statement.
It's the same play we ran the first play of the game against North Dakota State.
Yeah, and it worked.
It did. And if Troy Anderson would have put like 2 more yards underneath that ball, Kevin Cassis would have walked into the end zone. So
yeah, I forgot about that. That was a super awesome start. But that was like literally the last good thing that happened that entire game.
Pretty much.
Except for Troy Anderson running like 105 yards in that game. That's amazing when the team was doing what it was doing.
True. Yeah, but at that point, well decided. Regardless, anyone else have any closing thoughts on Casey Bauman starting quarterback?
I just hope that he just progresses, and I hope MSU is patient with him. And that's been my kind of thought from the beginning, whether it was Rovig or Bauman. I hope he's going to take his lumps. I hope he has that Daenerys McGee mentality. Just come back out there and give it your best at every moment. So.
Yeah, I know you don't exactly trust Choate in these matters. Hopefully, Matt Miller's like, if things are going south, Miller's like, just let him write it out. Don't take my guy out. So I guess we'll see how that plays. So how about you, Shane? Any closing arguments, thoughts here?
Actually, I was going to say something very similar to what Ryan was saying. I think it's going to be rough. Like, we're going to start out, we're going to see things. We're going to be like, oh man, like seriously. But we have to. I shouldn't say we have to. We really should give him a chance to learn things the hard way, and let the defense and the run game and stuff like that kind of hold him up as he's learning, because down the road that could really pay dividends if we give him a chance to learn.
Solid arguments, and honestly, I have the exact same sentiments, so I don't even need to say anything right here. All right. Well, good discussion. Let's talk a little bit about competition. I know that the coaches have talked about competition between position groups. Is that something that you've noticed that them talking a little bit about, just the competition in general, Shane?
Yeah. It just seems like everyone is just in a good mood right now in camp, and things are just like clicking. I think a big part of that is that everyone has pride. Everyone's got pride in their position group, and they're really trying to demonstrate like they really are really good. And there's some position groups that are like the safeties. It's like, if you're going to be as good as them, like you got to be extremely good. If you're going to be as good as D line, like you really need to show up and put your work in. And so that's what I asked Cho, like, is there someone, like a person or a unit that's standing out to you in terms of level of effort or focus? And he was like, actually, like we were just talking about it. It seems like every unit is just showing up and competing to try to be the best unit on the team. And I can't imagine a better type of competition on the team than like each unit trying to be the best. Like that's, you got the guys that are doing the same thing, encouraging each other to be better so that their unit is better. And the people they're competing against aren't competing for the same role, you know? So it's just an incredibly healthy type of competition to have on your team. Then there's also, impressively, JoJo Henderson has come up a couple different times he impressed me. And I mentioned to somebody, I don't remember who it was. Did I mention to you guys, like during the Wagner game last year, he was the only dude that could tackle, Foles. Like every time Ryan Foles got tackled, it was number 7 on him. It was amazing.
I remember watching him against the South Dakota State game 2 years ago when he was first on the team, and he seemed like the only guy who was able to like tackle anyone.
Yeah. I mean, he's an impressive dude. You know, you've got these 2 guys ahead of him that are just, you know, all conference type guys, and that's really difficult. But I guess he's pressing them. He's like really, really, you know, competing to try to, you know, put himself out there as a number 1 kind of guy, which just makes them that much, you know, more hungry for their own job, you know, which is just, I think it's just a really good way to build an incredibly good defense.
He's kind of a forgotten guy. Like he had a good season his first year here, and then last year he just was hurt for most of the year. Or is that how it went? Am I remembering this correctly? Like he lost his starting job basically because he was injured, and they brought in Jacquay Allen.
I can't remember, Thorny.
I can't remember the specifics of this.
His shoulders, is that his problem? Is that or safety that had problems with that? I can't remember.
or was he here in 2016 when we played South Dakota State? I'm talking. Yeah. I'm talking when we played him at home.
At home, I think that was 17, wasn't that? 17 and 18 was a home and home.
Yeah, 17 or 16 was at home because that was Cho's first year. 17 was away, and then we. Oh, geez, no, I'm wrong. Yeah, 17 was home. Yeah, 17 was home. Yeah. 18 was away. He played in the 17 one. I think he was injured for most of last year. I don't know. Whatever it was. He's a good player, and he would be if he was the starting guy back there. We'd all be completely happy about that.
Absolutely.
I think he's going to make some waves in one way or the other. I don't know how he's going to get in the game. It's going to be hard to get any playing time between safeties who aren't typically guys who rotate in and out. So, but it's really good to have a guy like that in that position.
Yeah. And in that same vein and sticking with the defensive backs, Tyrell Thomas, I had an opportunity to interview him, and I can't believe with the stuff that he has done for our team over the past couple years, especially in Cat Grizz. I just can't imagine how good these guys are that the coaches are putting them ahead of him at the corner position, because he's not in the, you know, 1s or maybe even 2s. Maybe he's at a number 2 kind of level, but you know, you'll see him practice with the 3s and 4s sometimes. And it just, I know that there were some things with he had a class that he had to kind of, you know, demonstrate that he was getting passing grades and stuff like that. And maybe chose making him work his way back in, but he's just such an incredible corner that it just surprises me that they have people that are ahead of him in the system, which, I mean, that's such a great, I don't know, problem to have, so to speak. But just seeing those guys like JoJo and Tyrell, like competing for time, it's like, man, it really gives you a lot of hope for the team.
Shane, when you talked to Tyrell, how did he take it? What was his attitude like?
He was so cool. You guys are gonna love it when you get the audio and the video. Like, he was such a cool kid. Like, he was like really humble, and like I was talking to him, he's just like, I was like, you know, what's it like to like be now kind of competing for that job after you know, worked so hard, done so much good for the team and all that. He's like, oh, it's just a blessing. It's just a blessing. Just over and over. I was just so impressed with him. And he just like, I don't know, he was so cool. I asked him, I don't know if you guys know this, But in 2016, I think it was, St. John Bosco played Bishop Gorman. Did I tell you about this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So for the podcast listeners, St. John Bosco played Bishop Gorman, and if any of you watched the
QB1,
the documentary QB1, they showed that game, and he was actually on that episode. Like, he actually showed up on that. I thought that was pretty cool. It was like not the most flattering light, but regardless, like really neat, that he was on that and was, kind of had his 15 minutes of fame.
Cool. Did Dave Martell light him up?
Yeah, so they did the same thing. Like, if you guys remember what we did to Justin Calhoun, like with we had 86 what's his name from Bozeman, receiver from Bozeman,
Lance
McCutcheon run a fade, and then and he kind of got him, and actually a bit, but not enough that the flag was thrown. Well, on the very next play, they put Johnson there, run the exact same route with Johnson, and that's how we got like a 30-yard pass, 30-yard fade that would have been for the end zone, but sometimes those longer ones are hard to dial perfectly in. But it was the same play. They did 2 fades against him with 2 different receivers and just wore him out, and they showed him getting burned.
No, okay.
So sticking with the kind of the cornerbacks, then who has been running with the ones mainly?
Let's see. Who has it been?
Damian Washington or Filer for sure.
Yeah, Filer's been in the mix, and
Tyrone Gibson has been the name I keep hearing.
Yeah. I have a difficult time because their names are so similar, Tyree and Tyrese. But yeah, I guess Tyree has been really good. I think that, I apologize, guys. That's not one that I've had a close eye on. I'm just like, I just watched Tyrell Thomas. I'm like, gosh, how's that kid not number one? But yeah, I guess those were the 2. The Gibson twins were the guys that were pushing behind Jalen Cole and Tyrell Thomas. So that makes sense. That would be him, and obviously Filer being an all-conference guy, being the other guy.
Well, I know that a couple guys that have been mentioned by the coaches have been like Ty Okada and Lavelle Price Jr. have been a couple guys that I think are also having really good camps as well. So it's pretty crazy. Like, that's a pretty loaded group. You got the Gibson twins, you got Thomas, Okada, Price Jr., Filer, the stalwart Damian Washington feels like he's been here since like Mike Kramer was coaching. I feel like he's
I interviewed him too. I'm gonna kind of like over the course of the season, like, put those ones out. But Ty Okada is technically a safety, but the safeties group is like just loaded. That if you put Ty Okada and 7 JoJo Henderson out there, it would be, you'd be happy as a clam. But yeah, it's just so nice to have that depth. All the defensive backs are just so good. And then you throw in Troy, and he's like, yeah, Troy could totally play nickel. That's the biggest freaking nickel. Like, that's insane.
No one plays nickel that is over 210 pounds.
I know, right?
Or over 200 pounds. Like, even that's a big nickel.
Yeah, it's crazy. So yeah, defensive backs is loaded. I love it.
Yeah, that's not even considering that Sean Borges departed in the offseason either. If he was in there, man, it's a loaded group regardless. But okay, well, we talked a little bit about the safeties and the cornerbacks. Anything else you want to talk about there with that, Foley?
Nope. I think that's pretty good. Yeah.
All right. So I know one of the biggest competitions has been a linebacker. Troy Anderson is pretty much the only one I think really has a guaranteed job. We were talking a bit before the show started, and I honestly, still a little confused on who's starting where. So we got Amandre Williams playing the buck, which is the flex linebacker, defensive end. Troy Anderson, and is it going to be Josh Hill, you think? Is he going to get a lot of the snaps? Anyone want to answer that one? And Michael Jobin, I guess, is the other one I've heard a lot about reading reports and from the camp. What are your thoughts on that? Maybe Shane, take it first.
Yeah. So Josh Hill is like just so proven. He's so freaking good. And Michael Jobin put on like 1 million pounds in the offseason of pure muscle. So like I can imagine him fighting for it. But Nolan Askelson has also been right up there that they've been talking about. In fact, that's the first name that came out of Kane Ione's mouth when he was talking about the defensive backs. The middle linebacker battle that he, was really kind of standing out too. But I just don't know. I mean, look, I understand. You look at him and you're like, we're going to put him out there. The dude just plays football. He's just insanely good. Like, I don't know. Like, you watch him tackle like JLM, Jerry Louis McGee from Missoula in the open field, and you're like, people don't do that. Like, that's not done, but he just did it with ease. He makes it look so easy, and he's always in the right place at the right time. I can't imagine taking him off, but they're not talking about him as if he's a surefire candidate for one of those two positions. It's like I think that Bobby Daly feels really conflicted about making the decision because he just feels like he's got an embarrassment of riches.
Shane, were you talking about Askelson there, or I was a little bit lost on that?
Yeah, I'm sorry. So the main thing I was talking about there was Josh Hill. I don't know how you take Josh Hill off the field. Okay. Nolan Askelson, though, was one that specifically Kane Ione, defensive coordinator Kane Ione, had said, yeah, he's really standing out. And that's great to hear. And to be totally honest with you, it's hard to watch everyone competing at all the different positions at the same time. So I haven't noticed that in particular, but that says something when you're competing against a guy like Josh Hill and you're like, yeah, it's a standout guy. It's like, geez Louise, how good do you have to be to play middle linebacker?
You think even if Josh Hill is 100% healthy, the job is still not even guaranteed to be his, and Bobby Daly feels a little conflicted on who he should start?
I guess that's a good question. Maybe that is part of his hang up is, he had a back surgery that it sounds like some people are saying you just don't go back and play football after that. But he obviously did against a very tough team in North Dakota State. And
he instantly looked like the best linebacker on the field.
Right? Like it was
crazy.
Yeah. It's insane. He hasn't been playing all season, but I don't know. Maybe if he was 100%, he hadn't had any surgery, maybe it wouldn't be as much of a question, but it just sounds like right now he just feels like he's just got a really good problem in that he just doesn't know who to plug in there because everyone's competing at such a high level.
Well, you also got to watch the pitch count on a guy who's been injured. So keep him in and out, and you really got to get the other guy, really ready to play. Because what if Josh Hill does get hurt? So you got to have basically in a situation like that where a guy has had an injury that's a serious injury like that, you can't play him too much, and you got to have a guy ready to go and play the other snaps that he's not playing.
I think that's exactly right. And Josh Hill has been on a pitch count or he's been in a position. Coach Cho kind of made a little bit of a joke about it, how he's on his own pitch count in the scrimmage. Like, he's like, oh, I wish I could have that job. I get to work how much I want to work or whatever. He's just kind of joking about it. But I think there's a certain degree of like, look, save him for the really important moments. And then let these guys, they're doing great. They look good. Let these guys in there and get there. I mean, it's not like quarterback. You got to have a guy that's just the guy. You can kind of roll with a few different people. So
he's just so good at being the quarterback of the defense, if you will.
Yeah, that's a good point. But those guys in the back, the safeties I think they're really good at that too. So I think it's true. It's fair to let them do that.
Less important has it been in other years anyway.
Yeah,
for the middle linebacker to handle that.
Yeah, and I think specifically Kane Ione being a safety, he kind of has like a sense of pride in the safety being kind of the quarterback of the defense. He said so much in his interview that we did in the Blockhouse.
Foley, who do you like to start on the positions, the three spots?
Troy Anderson. That's the only one I really know. So that's the only one I'm going to say. So. I just remember last year we just lacked speed in our linebacker core, so I would just like to see that, and Troy brings speed. So there you go.
Yeah, that's where I get a little concerned about reports of like Job and that on a whole bunch of weight, because he didn't exactly look real fast out there last year, and if he's 20 pounds up, I just hope he's got the speed to cover guys out there. And sounds like Chad Cano's kind of the same way. Like, granted, the only time he really played last year was when he was really hobbled and you could tell, but he's put on 15, 20 pounds too. So, we got to maintain some speed back there. We can't have slow to the ball, slow sideline to sideline.
Well, another guy that comes to mind would be Daniel Hardy. I think he's shown some flashes, or at least, that's what I read about. And he's an upcoming player that will be good for us. I mean, he definitely has the body for it and the speed. So we can put it together and see the plays. I would love to see him.
Well, he's going to play a lot too because Troy Anderson's going to have a pitch count number 1, and he's going to be playing offense number 2. So Daniel Hardy's going to play quite a bit of snaps if he is the backup.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and just for people who don't know, that's his spot is the same spot as Troy Anderson, the field side linebacker or the Sam linebacker. So, but I think that's the other thing is that when you have guys with speed, then their range, I think, kind of changes in the defense, and like your 11 square feet or whatever it is that they say that you're responsible for, it actually changes a little bit, right? Depending on where you are. If you're on the defensive line, you're not covering as much area as the safety is, right? But if you're able to slide out of a position where you're supposed to cover a lot of ground, you put Troy Anderson, someone who can just cover sideline to sideline, and you don't have to be the fastest guy as long as you're not getting trucked by a linebacker, I'm sorry, getting trucked by a running back, excuse me. You're in a much better position. I think for me, that was the thing that I wanted to see out of Jobman was him being able to stand a guy up and not take the tackle kind of into himself, but stand the guy up.
Yeah, I mean, it remains to be seen a little bit too how Troy Anderson is going to be a linebacker. We all know his athleticism, his speed, but can he shed blocks? Can he be in the right spot at the right time? Can he learn the technique? I think the answers are probably yes to every single question, but he's still learning position. He's still new, but I cannot wait for him to absolutely just blow some little running back up or a quarterback. I can't wait to see him just crush somebody.
Wait, I'm sorry. Who are you talking about there?
Troy Anderson.
Troy, yeah. I was gonna say, there was a moment they were doing like pass rush drills, and I did see. I'm like, I gotta watch what 15 does. And so I look over and oh my gosh, it looks stupid, honestly. Like him taking somebody on, it's like, oh my gosh, it's insane. But you remember, like he got in for like one play at defensive end. When his hand was all busted up, and they're like, "Oh, you can't play quarterback. Why don't you go play defensive end at South Dakota State?" And he blows through the offensive lineman to sack their quarterback at the goal line. I don't know if you guys remember that, but it was freaking insane. And now he's going to learn the technique. It's like it's crazy.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, that's an exciting group, and I think no matter which cream rises at the top, that's going to be a solid group. Because we didn't even talk about like Tatum Gilman or Blake Flovin, who are guys that have earned some praise, and we've heard a lot about, or Callahan or Riley. So it's just a solid group, and I think it's going to be better and more productive than it was last year. So if anyone else has any other things to say about the linebackers,
nope.
We will move on to the last group we're going to talk about here. Didn't really expect to go group by group here. It's kind of what we're doing. At this rate, we'll be here forever. So the defensive line, let's just talk a little bit about, we kind of know what we're getting with a lot of the guys. I'm curious, has Jason Skrempos really made any sort of impression or not? Because I haven't really heard one way or the other.
So on me in particular, I have not seen him actually kind of in action doing stuff. I've watched for it, but there's just other guys doing stuff, I think. And I don't know exactly why it is, but I haven't seen him do a lot. So I've seen him in a little bit, nothing that ever blew my mind. He's a big dude, so there's no way he's not gonna, do well. He comes from UW, but I think, man, that inside linebacker spot, we just have, I think we're just, did I say inside linebacker? I'm sorry, inside defensive line. We just have a lot of guys.
The interior.
The interior defensive line. Yeah. Just a lot of guys that, whether it's because of technique or speed or size, like they can get the job done. And I don't know, he's huge. So I'd put him in there, but I haven't seen, like, I thought the D line was really salty without him.
Agreed.
So, yeah, we'll see like what it looks like. But I think I do want to say, kind of like before we kind of wrap up all this, that like if you listen closely to Kane Ione's interview, he says if we want to be the best defense in the country, these are the things we have to do. So that's the kind of goals they have. I mean, that's very lofty to say we want to be the number one defense in the country. And he says what we want to do is we want to get the ball, score the ball, and give it back to our offense. Like he's talking about scoring on defense is a priority. That's a big deal. Those are very lofty goals. And so I think when you set your sights high, you can really achieve some amazing things. And I'm excited to see what these guys are going to do.
Yep. Me as well. We're losing some big production off the group, but in the defensive line here, still talking about. But I think overall, I think the entire defense definitely has a chance to be much improved. Last year, I still have questions about a new defensive coordinator taking over a guy that most Bobcats agree did a pretty good job. Had some things here and there, but overall, like everyone was a little surprised to see him go. But I think that they could be definitely a top group. They're going to have to be, especially as the offense kind of learns the ropes with Casey Bauman learning learning how to play really, starting for the first time in his career. So I think it's going to be a solid group, and I'm really excited to see what they can do.
As much as people might be looking forward to watching our quarterback play, I'm more looking forward to watching our defense play. So
I think that's kind of
the number one thing I want to see when Texas Tech comes that game next Saturday. Is I think we're going to surprise them with our physicality up front.
It's kind of funny. We're the fan base that, like, I think most Bobcat fans will agree that we're more excited to watch our defense play right now than we are our offense.
There you go.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, we didn't really talk much about the offense. I didn't really mean for this to be position by position. That's kind of what it turned into. We talked about the quarterback. We all know, all the people listening to this that probably know that the offensive line, pretty much everyone's back there. That's going to be a good group. Isaiah and Fonzie, we all know we're getting there. Does anyone have anything else? I did want to talk a little bit briefly about Jacob Hadley at the tight end position. Have you noticed anything there, Shane? I've heard really good things about Jacob Hadley really coming on as of late.
To be honest, I can't say that witnessed with my own eyes anything specific about him, but it sounds like he's just got great ball skills and is going to be really good in the position and is the front runner for that position. Can I just say something really quick about the new kid from Bozeman, Lonergan?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He looks. Coach Cho says he looks like a sophomore. Yeah, he looks like 91 did last year. Jobman. He looks like Jobman did last year. And he's extremely athletic, like a big, thick dude. And I don't know if you want him in there when you're going to try to pull a runoff, but man, I would love to see what he could do as a tight end.
Yeah, that's definitely an exciting group. I know we lost everyone last year, but a really solid group of guys. But I think this group could end up being overall more productive and better. Maybe not this year, but certainly they're all young guys. So down the road, 2-3 years, there's going to be one of the top groups in the league. All right. Well, we don't do this too often, but we're kind of up against it, if you will. Foley, start with you. Breakout player. What do you got?
Ooh, you put me on the spot.
Yep. No previous discussion on this question.
Breakout player. I'm going to go Ty Okada. I think he's going to be my I think he's just going to be everywhere. But, I mean, we're going to all focus on Conkle and Quay, but I think he's just going to be in the right spot at the right time. So,
do you think Gator's starting now at some point?
No, of course. I mean, you're always going to go through injuries and whatnot, so no doubt.
Fair enough. All right. How about you, Shane? Breakout player.
I guess I want to go with Ryan Lonergan because if he gets to see the field, I honestly think that he could be an incredibly good receiving tight end. And, if he gets, maybe he'll have a game or two where he just gets to really show what he can do. And I think that he's going to really impress some people.
I think you guys are thinking a little too hard about this. I'm going to go with Amandre Williams.
Well, that's probably a good pick too.
It's a little too obvious, perhaps, but yeah, I don't think there's much thought here. It's either you could almost even say Troy Anderson because he's hardly played any linebacker. So, a guy can end up on the Buck Buchanan list that played quarterback last year, who led the country in touchdowns to the next year on the Buck Buchanan award list. If that was to be the case, that would be one of the most ridiculous college stories I've ever heard of in my entire life.
Breakout player of the year. No one saw it come. Good at linebacker.
No one saw, but everyone's heard of. All right, gentlemen. Well, I think that pretty much is a wrap on that one. I think that was some good discussion. I'm excited for the season to start. That was a pretty productive fall camp. It was an exciting fall camp, and I'm just glad for it to be over, though. I'm glad we got a starting quarterback. First time, really, I felt like we made the right choice, and at least we made a choice, and I feel good about the choice in a long time.
I'm done talking fall camp, Thorny. Let's get this thing going.
All righty. Yep. Well, thanks again, Shane, for coming on. Foley, have a good night. And gentlemen, go Cats.
Go Cats.
Go Cats.